Johnny Whitaker was born John Orson Whitaker Jr. on December 13, 1959 in Van, California. Ever since he was really little, Johnny had something special that made him stand out from other kids. Not just because he could act, but because he was a young boy who could make people watching feel real emotions in a way that seemed easy and real. When he acted, you could feel the kindness, truth, and sweetness in what he did. These are the things that made his career special and turned him into a famous name before he was even a teenager. Whitaker started acting when he was super young. By the time he was 3 years old, he was already appearing in TV commercials. People quickly noticed him because he was so natural in front of the camera and had such an easy-to-read face. These early TV spots opened the door for what would become an amazing acting career. In 1966, his big moment came when he got the part of Jody Davis in the popular CBS show called Family Affair, acting with Brian Keith and Sebastian Catt. Johnny played a young boy who lost his parents and came to live with his Uncle Bill along with his twin sister Buffy, who was played by Anna Jones. The show became really popular and stayed on TV for 5 seasons from 1966 to 1971. Johnny's acting as Jody touched the hearts of millions of people watching who felt close to his gentle emotions and his real way of showing what it's like to be a kid dealing with loss and getting used to new things. As Family Affair kept getting more and more popular, Whitaker became super famous. He became one of the most well-known young stars in Hollywood. People looked up to him for acting like a pro and being able to handle tough, emotional scenes like a grown-up actor would. His close friendship with his fellow actors, especially Brian Keith, looked really real on TV, making it seem like a true family that viewers really cared about. When the cameras weren't rolling, Keith became like a father to Johnny, a connection that would deeply touch him for many years to come. After Family Affair ended, Whitaker was able to move into movie roles, something that a lot of child stars had a hard time doing. In 1972, he got a lot of praise for his acting in The Biscuit Eater, a touching movie about a boy and his faithful dog. The movie showed that he could carry a whole film with real emotional power. That same year, he also starred as the playful but lovable Tom Sawyer in Tom Sawyer, 1973, made by Reader Digest and featuring music by the Sherman Brothers. His acting as the adventurous boy from Mark Twain's famous book was praised by many people and is still remembered as one of the best movie versions of that character. In 2012, Johnny Whitaker came back into the public eye in an unexpected and creative way when he helped produce and co-hosted a short radio talk show called The Dr. Zod and Johnny Show. The show gave Whitaker a way to connect with fans in a totally new way, mixing humor, honest conversations, and thoughtful ideas. Fans who listened often talked about his natural charm on the radio, his quick sense of humor, and the thoughtful ideas he shared about life inside and outside of show business. Even though the show didn't last very long, it became a special treat for longtime fans who enjoyed hearing the former child star talk with grown-up thinking, humor, and honesty about his journey through Hollywood and his life. After that, the next year in 2013, Whitaker tried something new in his artistic career. This time, he went on stage. He appeared in the Judson Theater Company's professional show of To Kill a Mockingbird, the classic American play based on Harper Lee's Pulitzer Prize-winning book. Whitaker's acting as Judge Taylor, even though it was a small role, had a quiet seriousness that showed off his experienced acting skills and his respect for serious drama. Audiences were touched by his presence, and critics pointed out how his calm authority and expressive acting brought realness to the courtroom scenes. For Whitaker, the role meant a lot because it was a return to live theater, a place that let him reconnect with the pure art of acting that first made him want to be in entertainment when he was a child. Then in 2016, Whitaker made fans of all ages happy with a nostalgic appearance in Amazon's remake of Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, a beloved show that had first made him famous in the 1970s. Showing up in the first episode, he played Zach, a grumpy but funny boat owner who exchanges jokes and insults with David Arquette's salty sailor character, Captain Barnabas. The appearance was more than just a fun guest role. It was a touching tribute to the original show and to Whitaker's beginnings in children's TV, adding to the feeling of reunion and celebration. The episode also had appearances by Sid and Marty Krofft, the legendary creators of the original series. For both longtime fans and people watching for the first time, Whitaker's return to the world of Sigmund and the Sea Monsters was a charming reminder of his lasting connection to a generation of Saturday morning TV magic. Through these different projects, radio, stage, and TV, Johnny Whitaker showed that his love for storytelling had never gone away. Each appearance showed a different side of what he could do. From his comedic timing and warmth to his dramatic skills and nostalgic appeal. Many years after first winning hearts as a child actor, Whitaker kept growing and changing, showing that his creative spirit and commitment to entertaining audiences were as strong as they had ever been. Johnny Whitaker's marriage to Symphony Wright was a short but important part of the actor's complicated personal life. The two got married in 1984 during a time when Johnny was trying to figure out how to go through the often rough change from being a child star to being an adult. By that time, Whitaker was already well known for his unforgettable roles in Family Affair, Tom Sawyer and Sigmund and the Sea Monsters. However, behind the smiling boy next door image that had made him famous, he was having a hard time figuring out who he was and what he wanted to do beyond the Hollywood spotlight. His marriage to Symphony Wright happened when he was looking for stability, companionship, and maybe a sense of normal life after years spent in the tough world of show business. Symphony Wright was not part of the entertainment business, and that difference might have been attractive to Johnny at first, since he had gotten tired of the stress of being famous and the fakeness that often came with it. Their marriage was a hopeful try at making his life more stable and finding real connection away from the public's attention. The couple had happy moments together and made plans for their future. But like a lot of young marriages, especially ones affected by the complications of Hollywood, it soon ran into problems. Johnny was dealing with personal struggles, including growing disappointment with the entertainment industry, and would later face problems with drug and alcohol abuse that deeply affected his life and relationships. These difficulties probably put a lot of strain on the marriage as emotional distance and different priorities started to take their toll. By 1988, after 4 years of marriage, Johnny Whitaker and Symphony Wright decided to separate and finalize their divorce. The breakup was a painful time in Johnny's life, but also became a turning point. The end of their marriage forced him to face his own personal problems and rethink the direction of his life. Though not much has been shared publicly about Symphony Wright herself, and she stayed mostly private after the divorce. The experience deeply shaped Johnny's understanding of relationships, strength, and self-worth. In later interviews, Whitaker talked openly about the hard times he faced during and after the marriage, thinking about how losing that partnership was one of several wake-up calls that eventually led him to rebuild his life. After their divorce, Johnny entered one of the hardest parts of his life, a time when he fought addiction and moved away from the acting career that had defined his youth. But out of that darkness came an amazing transformation. Years later, he came out sober and spiritually renewed, dedicating himself to helping other people who were fighting similar battles. In that way, his short marriage to Symphony Wright can be seen as a chapter that, while painful, played an important role in his long journey toward healing and personal growth. For many years, fans of the beloved 1960s TV show Family Affair have held a special place in their hearts for the touching relationship between young Jody Davis and his on-screen Uncle Bill Davis, played by veteran actor Brian Keith. Now, at age 65, Johnny Whitaker, the child star who played Jody, has decided to open up in more detail about what it was really like working with Keith, a man who became much more than just someone he acted with. Brian Keith wasn't just another actor on set, Whitaker revealed. He was like a second father to me, someone who took the time to teach me, guide me, and protect me from the pressures of Hollywood when I was just a little kid trying to make sense of it all. His words show the deep emotional connection between the two, one that went way beyond the cameras and the carefully written scripts. Whitaker explained that as a young boy of barely 7 when Family Affair began, he was thrown into a world filled with adults, long working hours, and intense expectations. In the middle of all that, Brian Keith stood out as someone who made things stable. He was tough, but he had this soft heart, Whitaker said. He didn't talk much about feelings, but you could feel that he genuinely cared. Keith, known for his rough manner and masculine presence, took the time to joke with the children between filming scenes and even help them understand the meaning behind their lines. He would say, "Don't just say the words, Johnny, believe them." That stuck with me my whole life. But Whitaker also admitted that his relationship with Keith wasn't always easy. He could be intimidating, Whitaker said. He had that voice that could shake you, and when he got upset, everyone knew to stay out of his way, but I never doubted that he loved us. He was just a man who carried a lot of weight inside. Whitaker's tone became sad when he thought about the struggles that Keith faced later in life, including personal tragedies and declining health. "I think people forget that even strong men like Brian can be broken inside," he said quietly. He had seen and been through so much, and sometimes that pain would come through in ways people didn't understand. When Family Affair ended in 1971, Whitaker was just a teenager still figuring out who he was outside of his child star image. "Brian stayed in touch with me for a while," Whitaker revealed. "He would call and ask how I was doing, especially when he heard I was struggling. But Hollywood can pull people apart. We both had our paths to walk." Years later, when Whitaker learned of Keith's tragic death in 1997, he was devastated. "I remember crying like a kid again," he said. "It broke my heart because I knew how much pain he must have been in. He wasn't just my TV uncle. He was family to me." Whitaker went on to share how much he still carries Keith's lessons with him today. "He taught me what real professionalism looks like," he said. "He showed me that acting wasn't just about fame. It was about truth." Brian had this way of making every scene real, like it wasn't acting at all. He'd say, "Johnny, if you don't feel it, the audience won't feel it either." That advice has stuck with me for over 50 years. In thinking about Keith's influence, Whitaker stressed how rare it was to find someone in Hollywood who genuinely cared about the well-being of a child actor. "There were a lot of adults who saw kids like me as props," he explained. "But Brian never did. He saw me as a person. He looked out for me. And I think that's one of the reasons I was able to survive the business when so many child stars didn't." Whitaker has talked in the past about his own battles with addiction and depression after his fame faded, but he credits mentors like Keith for planting the seeds of strength in him. "Whenever I was down, I think about Brian's strength," he said. "He was the kind of man who faced his demons with courage, and that inspired me to keep going." Today, Whitaker looks back on Family Affair with deep gratitude, not just for the success it brought him, but for the relationships that shaped his life. "I don't think I ever really told Brian how much he meant to me," he admitted sadly. "If I could, I'd tell him that he changed my life. He made me believe in myself, and that's something no fame or fortune could ever replace." Johnny Whitaker's heartfelt reflections remind fans that behind the smiles and laughter of television's golden age were real human connections. Some tender, some complicated, but all deeply meaningful. "Brian Keith was my hero," Whitaker concluded. "And now looking back at 65, I finally understand that he wasn't just playing a role. He was showing me every single day what a real man and a real father figure should be." Today, Johnny Whitaker honors Brian Keith, not only as someone he acted with, but as a deep influence who helped shape the person he became. "Brian was complicated," he concluded. "He had his demons, but he also had tremendous love and integrity. He didn't always say it, but he showed in the way he worked, the way he treated people, and the way he carried himself." Whitaker hopes that by finally telling his truth about Brian Keith, fans will remember the man not just for his roles on television, but for the quiet depth and humanity behind them.